Okay, here we go. Riv and I have done a couple of videos now. One of them kind of popped off. We're not entirely sure what happened differently there, but hey, we're just going to keep rolling with it and see what happens. For us, at the time of recording at least, it is the 31st today, so we thought, ooh, Moon's year in review should be interesting. Moon tends to do fairly interesting videos in a, let's call it, in inflammatory sense, more of a rubbing salt on the wounds kind of a vibe. But hey, who doesn't like a bit of salt in their wounds, right?
I know I
So
don't.
yeah, Moon's year in review. Here we go.
2024 has
Oops.
been an eventful year to say the
Good
least.
start.
From elections,
Yeah.
assassinations and war to high-profile
Great minds
arrests,
think alike.
acquittals and
Yeah.
breakdancing, 2024 has had it all. So let's explore these big events and worldwide trends that define the past year.
I like that. 2024 has had it all. I mean, yeah, the sweeping generalizations are pretty real with Moon.
Yeah, just
You
a
know,
little bit.
I'm sure every year has it all, if you want to look at it that way, but yeah.
All the way back in January. While 2024 might have proven the old adage that change is only constant, when it first began, everything seemed like it might stay the same. While 2022
Isn't it change is the only constant? think
Yes,
that's
I've
it.
heard that before, right?
Change is constant. I don't know. Either I'm used to hearing that phrase incorrectly or that was incorrect. Either or.
Probably both.
in
They're probably both
2023
incorrect.
to see
Probably
new
both.
wars erupt, going
Yep.
into 2024, people weren't holding their breath waiting for peace. Lots of the old conflicts from previous years kept marching on. A year later, and the front line in Ukraine has barely moved, while the West Bank and Gaza Strip are still engulfed in conflict. The numerous lesser well-known civil wars across the world, like in Myanmar, faded into the background for everyone they didn't affect. The outlook for politics at the start of 2024
lot
was
of wars.
different though. With elections scheduled across the world, including the UK, France, and the US, everyone knew that there was a lot of potential for change. Taiwan was the first major country in line in what would become a rare event this year. Their incumbent Democratic Progressive Party
Now, does he have the 13th circled in blue there? Because that's specifically when this happened.
I would
Or is that just a
say
big
so.
But that seems way too. Look at the nature of the circling. It's so
Yeah.
ad hoc, right? Like that's not. I've put circles on these for a specific reason, and this one a different color. Every single one of those circles looks different.
Yeah, I would say
maybe
that he's
28th and 30th might be very similar now, but they're not the same.
No, they're not, and also the color is different. So this has got to be he's talking about the third. This happened on the 13th, is my guess. I don't really know the dates on this, but my assumption is like he's circled the 13th in blue because this is a specific event that happened on this day, and
Maybe.
the other
I
days
guess if you have
are,
a bunch of random circles, you can change the color very accurately, right?
yeah.
Still, what are the red circles for then? Oh.
I'd assume other significant dates that he will probably cover
If
or
that's an
that led
awful
up.
lot of circles, that means you're setting a pretty low bar for significance, and then it's hard to believe that there isn't a circle of that caliber.
Well, it's a
on
different
just
type of
every day,
circles, right? You've got like circle. The circle on 20 is vastly different to the circle on like 10 and 2, for example, right?
True. Yeah. So does that mean more significance, less significance?
I would say 20 would be the most significant day because it has the most circles on it. 13 is probably
but 13's another color, Rib. So
yes,
I'd
but
argue that one's
13's
more
the
important.
day. I reckon 13th. The 13th is the day he's talking about when this happened. That's why it's circled
Alright.
in blue.
We're
That
gonna
would
have
be
to
my
look this
guess.
shit up, aren't we? What is this Taiwan election? Taiwan
Yeah,
general
I'd say so.
election?
Yeah.
Taiwan election 2024. The presidential elections were held in Taiwan on 13th of January.
Yeah,
So there you go.
So,
Part of
and
the
then I'd say
blue
something
people
happened
don't
on
vote.
the 15th and then on the 20th. But I'm sure he'll go into that, and maybe it was an overthrow of power or something on the
Yeah.
20th. Like the 15th is when it started, and then the 20th was when it
Party
happened.
won the presidency with over 40% of the vote. And this wasn't a complete victory though, with the DPP losing the majority in the Taiwanese parliament. Looking back on it now at how incumbents have fared throughout the year, they ought to be happy they didn't lose much more. This result could have had major implications for the future and China's increased aggression against the island nation. And while Taiwan was wrapping up their election, the US political machine was still getting started. In February, Biden won his bid to stand for re-election in the Democratic primaries, facing very little opposition to his ticket. This was despite
Okay.
clear health concerns, of course. news. Even though the media denied it, everyone could see it. In January, a prominent professor gave Biden a 75% chance of living through a second term. A month later, the special counsel investigating his use of classified documents described Biden in much less favorable terms. While he found no wrongdoing on Biden's part, he did conclude that Biden had significant memory issues and limitations. And this was just one warning sign amongst thousands, but they all seemed to fall on deaf ears. Even at this point in the year, many Democrats felt it was too late to change candidates and impossible to convince Biden.
I mean, like, you can't have someone get elected and then all the people that are meant to be backing him turn around and suddenly say, oh, well, you know, it's like mind is basically completely gone. Like, that would look really bad on your party, right? So I think that everyone kind of knew.
Isn't that
but
what they effectively did, though?
It is eventually, but that's because, like, his doctor, I'm assuming, I don't really remember the specifics, said, you know, like, you need to step down because you're not going to get any better, and it's not helping. The amount, like, you being in power is not helping, would be my understanding. And I think that everyone else in the party was kind of just biding their time until a doctor told him to do that, because they didn't want to look bad for putting someone in power that essentially had a deteriorated mind, right?
Well, I mean, it's the question of whether he was like this before they put him in power or not. I would imagine. I mean, he's been a pretty old dude for a while.
Yeah, he was showing signs of dementia like well before the elections.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that they were like, oh, well, you know, he will win, so we want to keep that going, but also we need, you know, because he stepped down before the actual election, like the latest election. But he was trying to run because I think that they were hedging their bets on him winning and then stepping down afterwards.
Yeah,
that's my sort of guess. Is like, look, we'll keep him in because he's probably going to win the majority of the vote, so he can stay in, and then maybe a month in, if he can last that long, then we can pass it on to the vice president once he sort of isn't competent to basically run a country. In the eyes of the public, I guess. Yeah. Even though they were already kind of looking that way, I think that it was sort of their last-ditch efforts of beating Trump. Which we all know didn't happen when they replaced him with Camilla. Because I don't think that anyone had faith in Camilla winning the election. And I think that's the only reason they kept him in power.
Wait, what? The only reason they kept Biden in power?
Or, well, kept him in the running. Like, in the race, as long as...
But he wasn't in the race. He was only Kamala.
No. He stepped down in the race. He was still in the race up until, like, pretty late in the race, and then he stepped down and Camilla took his place.
I suppose that depends on what you mean by pretty late.
Like, he was in it until, like, the last couple of months of the race.
Yeah, but I don't think the race is really significant until the last couple of months, right? Like, at this point, the race, as much as it's coming, it's not particularly significant yet. And he hadn't stepped down yet. Well, I guess we'll see. I'm sure he will mention when he steps down.
Yeah, well, it's July 21st.
I would be surprised if he didn't step down at least 3 months before the actual election, maybe as much as 6. And I feel like it's only the last month or two that really is meaningful, because that's when the big guns come out, right? That's when they whip out whatever crazy shit they still have to whip out.
Yeah.
Got to keep some powder dry. We'll find out.
To step aside. Meanwhile, Germany became one of the first countries in the EU to legalize cannabis possession and use. While the country has been de facto legal in countries like the Netherlands for decades, Germany became the first major economy in the bloc to write it into their laws. While legislation could potentially bring in billions in tax revenue, and cannabis is almost certainly less harmful than other legal drugs like alcohol, it still had its critics who wondered what the proliferation of the drug might do to Germany as a whole. Depending how it all goes over for the next few years, this could be the start of a wave of legislation across the continent. In March in the UK, the government blocked the sale of the Telegraph Group, one of the major newspaper companies, to a UAE-led business consortium. It came as a shock considering
Whoa.
the UK has sold pretty much everything of value over the past few decades. Whether it's luxury properties and land rights in the capital, huge estates and tracts of land in the countryside, or even the biggest sports teams and leagues, the UAE and other foreign interests have bought up all of the UK. But the UK government decided to finally draw the line at newspapers and the media, although how long this will last remains to be seen. In April, we then saw another big election for the world, this time in South Korea. The country operates a system similar to the US, with parliamentary and presidential elections separated by years. The winner of the previous election was hoping to gain a majority in parliament. So far, with a powerful opposition party in control of the National Assembly, he'd been unable to truly govern. Unfortunately for him, his party failed to achieve a majority, seemingly sealing his fate as a placeholder president. A week later, India has also had an election with nearly 1 billion people registered to vote, and while Modi's ruling party lost some seats in parliament and the opposition to his rule got a lot more organised, he still remained in almost complete control of the country. The ongoing proxy war in the Middle East was also heating up in April as well, with Iran and Israel directly launching missiles and drone strikes at each other. While Iran's attempts rarely got through Israel's air defenses, Israel was able to effectively strike Iran at will. This compounded with their other victories against Hezbollah and Hamas, both organizations funded and armed by Iran, but it also led to a mass wave of hatred towards Israel. But of course, for most people, it wasn't just the election and wars that defined this year. For many in the video games industry, 2020
That's a presidential debate, and that was bloody Kamala already.
Yeah, so the presidential debate's not till October, though.
Yeah, but aren't we here in the timeline where we're still relatively early in the year?
Yes, but that was not from early on in the year, unless that was not actual debate, because Joe Biden did the first debate.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It was Kamala that did the second.
2024 was just a continuation of a collapse that had started a year earlier. Plummeting sales, mediocre games, and a lack of easy investment has led to a wave of cutbacks and redundancies across the industry.
Now, this is just a resulting factor of COVID. The layoffs and stuff were all just like, oh, we overhired during COVID. And now we're not seeing the same profits that we had during COVID, so now we need to lay off a bunch of employees.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that too, definitely. But I imagine coupled with that is the loss of profitability. Like if we scale up, right? If every $10 we invest, we get $100 back, well, we should be investing $10 a lot more, shouldn't we?
True.
I think they stopped getting back even the $10, and they're like, hey, whoa. We've hit that upper limit on how high we can scale this thing.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I feel like during COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs as well, right? Because a lot of businesses closed down. So that's going to affect your profitability as well, because no one has any money.
Well, I thought that was the whole thing, though. Like, nobody actually lost their job, right? I mean, some people did, but there was a lot of zombie jobs where they're just like, we'll pay you to do your job, even though you can't do your job.
There was a lot of layoffs just from like brick and mortar stores, right?
Probably, yeah.
Basically, because they had to close down.
I thought those were exactly the people who were just getting free money, right? Or at least in America, with how they were doing the free money. So they were trying to keep exactly those businesses alive, I thought.
Kind of, but it was only
didn't really do that shit.
Yeah, it was only really the bigger businesses. It's all the mom and pop shops and things like that, the smaller businesses.
Yeah, but I thought those were exactly the businesses where they were allowed to apply for, like, you know, a lot of like restaurants and shit, right? They were able to apply for government money to essentially pay their employees to do nothing based on like how many employees they used to pay for stuff that wasn't happening. Like, if people are locked up inside and can't go eat, obviously a restaurant's not going to work, right?
Yeah, right.
But if you have been employing 15 people in your restaurant the last 10 years, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, people aren't allowed to go to restaurants.
I mean, I'm assuming that probably wasn't enough money, and that was just overemphasized how much they were doing it. I know they did that in Australia, and they cut that off real quick.
Yeah.
Like, it did not last the amount of time that COVID was affecting these businesses. Like, a lot of businesses closed in Australia, and we had a lot of fail-safes for them.
Right.
So I think it just like, yeah, like you could apply for this, but they wouldn't give you enough money to actually cover the cost. Because I know a lot of people in America lost their jobs during COVID, like a lot of people.
Yeah, but at the same time, it feels like a lot of people got a lot of free money and didn't have to do anything except sit around at home, right?
Yes, but I think as a percentage, that was a very small percentage.
Oh, okay.
based on the people that I talked to in America that got laid off during COVID and still haven't recovered. Like, I'm talking to people in the US that still haven't found another.
Yeah.
So,
What?
I mean, I don't know actual numbers, but I feel like even if they had something in place like that, it wouldn't have been enough money to cover it, because that would put them so far, like the country so far in debt, right? Like, imagine covering every single mom and pop shop in America and paying their wages.
Yeah, but at the same time, weren't there those like dodgy people applying for whatever help loan things that ran these like sketchy businesses that were then like buying a Ferrari with the money and shit like
Yeah,
that?
and that's the other thing, is like people were doing stuff like that, and it's like the owners would just pocket the money, fire their employees anyway, and then or pay them like minimum wage. Like, some places in the US, you can pay wait staff $2 an hour.
Damn.
Because they're like, oh well, no, your wage comes from tips.
Yeah, that's
which
fucked.
is just horrible, right? So I mean, even if they were like paying, like getting the government money and then paying the wages, if they're only paying like, you know, $5 to $10 an hour, like most US waiters survive entirely on the tips that they get. So it's not enough to like actually support themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of a crazy system.
Like, they only, when was it? Like, it was a couple of years ago when they changed the minimum wage to $15. $15 an hour was only a minimum wage recently, which is just terrifying to think. Imagine living on $15 an hour and trying to pay rent, let alone food and other necessities.
Yeah, I can't imagine that would work particularly well.
Yeah. But I mean, don't quote me on any of this. I'm just going off like the vague knowledge that I have when this was happening and what I can remember and what people I've spoken to recently have said.
In April, the company Epic Games, who have been lousy with their money ever since Fortnite took off, also announced hundreds more layoffs. They're a company that's been giving out games for free for years, trying to buy out Steam's dominant market share. So to see them laying off their staff made people realize that the games industry was far more bloated than anyone had realized. Although in an industry with such a bad record of treating its workers, in lots of ways it was all still business as usual. There were still some glimmers of hope and beauty throughout it all. One of those was the total solar eclipse seen across North America. When the next one occurs in 2044, we can only hope it darkens the skies of a world at peace. Then moving into May, and things got even worse for Iran when its president and foreign minister were both killed in a helicopter crash, attempting to fly over a mountain range during a massive storm doomed both the vehicle and any chances of a rescue once they went down. And this was especially damaging to the Iranian government's future, as the prime minister had been slated to replace the supreme leader once he stepped down, and now they've been forced to reshuffle and come up with some new options. But May also saw Trump getting found guilty in his hush money trial. While Democrats protested that this was in fact a legitimate investigation into wrongdoing, the rest of the country argued that this was just a politically motivated way for the Democrats to smear and attack the former president, completely stopping him in his tracks and ruining any chances of him becoming president. Whether or not they said it though, most people knew that nothing would happen until after the election. That would be the only real factor in whether he would see actual consequences or not. Then in June, Assange was finally freed after years and years of uncertainty and embassy squatting. The plea deal they agreed saw Assange finally allowed to leave the UK for his native Australia, in a win against the forces of censorship. But as of this video, the situation for Snowden is still very bleak. But in possibly the biggest event of the year though, an interview with a random woman went viral launching the career of Hawk Tuah Girl. Her subsequent career would become emblematic of a social media hype machine gone completely insane. From just one viral moment, she capitalized as much as possible, launching her own podcast like everyone else.
By the way, in case you didn't know, this is the most popular podcast of all time.
What?
It is more popular than Joe Rogan.
That can't be right.
Yeah.
Okay, on what metric? What do you mean most popular? What does that mean?
Most listeners, most income. Yeah.
What? But like both of those? An average of those two? Or one of those two?
Let's look this up.
Like, I'm not saying you're wrong in making that call, but I'd like to know on what basis you're making the call that's the most popular podcast. Like, I just find that.
The charts, like the podcast charts.
Right.
Which I'm assuming is based on average listeners. Or, like, listeners per per episode. What metric do you base a podcast?
No, well,
chart
I mean,
on?
yeah, I can imagine the most number of people that tune in would be a sensible metric. Like, that would make sense to me, but at the same time, I'd like to know what metric it is.
I don't know. It just says
if it isn't that one.
Ranked
Like,
one on Apple
how would you
Podcasts.
measure most income, for example?
Well, you get paid per listen, right? How it works?
I don't know. Do you? I honestly have no idea. Yeah, I guess if you get paid per listener, then they'd have to track how many listeners.
But
I would have thought. Well, you get paid per listener, maybe in terms of your sponsorship deals.
Well, as well as how Spotify pays, just like YouTube pays per view, right? Like they pay. Well, they used to pay per view. Now they pay per how long person watches for.
Yeah. They pay per watch time.
Yeah.
But that makes sense. Yeah.
But I think Spotify just pays per view.
Most watch time would be the most sensible metric.
So cost per 1,000. So per 1,000 listens or downloads is how podcasts are monetized.
Okay. So, but that's listening all the way through, or downloading it to listen to it?
I think it will depend on whoever the advertising company is.
Right. Yeah. So again, the profit comes down to what your arrangement is with
whoever.
But like Spotify itself.
Yeah.
Is Spotify itself paying you every 1,000 downloads, or?
Yes. So on top of your sponsorships are different. But podcasts are paid per listen. And then there'll be some behind the scenes stuff. So I haven't really podcasts. I don't know much about them. Terrifying anyway.
Right. So, but Joe Rogan's number 2 then, presumably?
Well, Joe Rogan's back to number 1 now that the scandal and all that's happened. But yeah, she was number 1. She's dropped right off. From what I'm reading now.
Who the hell is going to listen to or watch
I don't know, like rug pulls are done by a lot of people, and like the majority of people don't really know about them, so most of the time that type of stuff doesn't really affect the popularity of stuff, right? Because like there is a
but didn't they specifically rug pull her audience here?
Yes, but
wasn't the whole point where we're onboarding people that normally wouldn't buy crypto?
But lots of people do, and a lot of people don't actually lose popularity.
I don't think lots of people go after people in terms of onboarding them. They rug pull the people that are already on board, which is why it doesn't necessarily have that big of an impact to an average viewer or listener. But
I mean, all of those rug pulls are done with a coin created by the person, the public figure.
Yeah, but
like look at Save the Children.
Right, and that wasn't aimed at onboarding people that aren't already into crypto. That was aimed at people who are already into crypto, who are like, oh, I can speculate on this. Well, I think the implication of saying this coin is aimed at all the Haley Welsh Hawk Tour girl fans that have never been into crypto, and then having that ridiculous fee structure, like, I don't know, it clearly felt like they were trying to take advantage of people that weren't. Yeah,
I figured they all did that because I
crypto.
Don't really follow much of this crypto stuff. I only see the big ones, so I assume they were all done like that. It's just like, hey, you should buy this crypto.
A rug pull is a rug pull, but it's a question of who are you trying to attract into the rug pull. And generally, you're trying to attract into the rug pull people who are already into crypto and who just want to speculate, who to some extent understand the risk of jumping into a crypto coin.
Right.
And for those people, it's easier to hide the lack of liquidity. It's much harder to hide a questionable fee structure, which would deter those people.
Okay.
But when you're trying to onboard people that aren't necessarily into crypto, and they're just like, okay, I'll buy this thing. How do I do it? They're not looking at the fee structure.
Yeah.
And they're even less looking at where the exit liquidity is coming from. But
yeah, I figured that would be
hard to gauge.
That would be something that my assumption was that most people would do that because you want to target the stupid people, right? The people who don't know anything about it. That would
Yeah,
be
but the problem with crypto is if you're a stupid person who doesn't know anything about it, you're not going to be able to engage with it.
true. Yeah, it's not
'Cause
exactly easy to buy.
you can't just like, how do I hand over my money for crypto? Well, you got to go make an account in an app. Too hard. I'm done. And most crypto platforms have a know your customer requirement, so you can't even do it that anonymously without being able to, without being prepared to go into even more questionable realms.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, it shows what I know about crypto. I stay away from it most of the time. Okay, but anyway, yeah, that was my point. That this became the most popular podcast, like, which is fucking insane.
Yeah, but I'm taking advantage of your sizable audience.
I mean,
would have a detrimental effect.
It was going to happen, whether it was crypto or some other scam.
If Joe Rogan made a weird crypto coin and rug pulled people, he wouldn't even advertise it. He wouldn't be pushing it on his large audience. He'd be letting whoever had this harebrained scheme of doing it, let it run in the background, advertise through crypto Twitter and fucking crypto Discord and whatever mechanisms are in place for these people who are already in the crypto scene, and rug pull them.
Yeah,
but sucking new people in that aren't already in that scene, that's like a whole different ball game. Because then, you fuck with your primary audience. Like, if 5% of people are into crypto and there are millions of people, it's like, that's plenty of people into crypto that I can target out of my audience.
Yeah,
but if you look at your millions of people and go, all right, let's hit the 95% of people that aren't into crypto by like including advice on what platforms to join. I think that's what they did. They actively were courting people and saying, hey, I know you're not into crypto, but like get into crypto for her.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see.
That's why there's a lot of way saltier people than usual, because they're like, what the fuck? I trusted you. And it's like, you shouldn't do that as a matter of course, but like, these are genuine idiots who got taken for a ride. Like, who's putting tens of thousands of dollars into a shitcoin, right? Clearly going to be a rug pull shitcoin.
Yeah,
people who've never done that before. People who've never had that happen to them before. That's who does that. And
that's why my general consensus was that's who the normal target audience was for this type of scheme.
Yeah. I think because the thing is, if you get sucked into these crypto rug pull schemes, depending on when you pull the ripcord and get out, you don't necessarily end up out money, right? Like if you get in early enough and sell at some point before it fully crashes back down, it's very hard not to make some kind of money.
Yeah, but that's the whole point, right?
The actual money being made is in the exit liquidity. Like somebody has to put up some money for you to swap your coins back into when you want to sell them at that price. Like there's so many ways to manipulate such a closed market for such a specific item.
Yeah.
Especially when it all happens over a very short space of time. So I think people who get themselves rug pulled go in fairly knowingly. They're just hoping to be quicker. Like somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy low and sell high. I'm just going to time the market. It's fine. That's easy.
Yeah.
I will know exactly when I should buy and sell, and that will be the highest and the lowest points, and it will be fine. I will make money in both directions. And those same people who get pulled into crypto rug pulls, I think they take that same attitude. Oh, no. I'm getting in before the rug pull happens, and I'll get out before the rug pull happens, right? Like,
right. Because the only rug pulls that I'm really know about are the Ice Poseidon one, this one, and the Save the Children one, which were all targeted the same way. They were targeted at people that didn't know anything about crypto. So, like, you're essentially trying to convince people to buy into your thing so you can take all their money without you knowing what crypto really is.
I think those other two were targeted at people who are already into crypto.
The Ice Poseidon one wasn't. Definitely not the Ice Poseidon one. No.
Okay. Well,
that was a long time ago.
Right. I think during the Save the Children's was at the height of, like, crypto mania.
Yeah, I remember that.
Near the top of it. So there was a lot more people into crypto or willing to get into crypto at that point than would have been. Crypto's kind of been and gone. So yeah, this Hawk Tour thing essentially went after people that were like, oh, okay, yeah, crypto, I guess that's regulated now, right?
Yeah, and you're targeting like
Fried's in jail, so this is fine now.
And you're targeting a female audience, right? And
yeah, that too.
Yeah. So there's like, it's less likely that as a female you'll know enough about crypto to understand what's going on. is my assumption of what they were thinking when they were doing this.
Probably.
Anyway, yeah.
does now, and doing everything
Let's
she
do it.
could to stay in the public eye. And she was just the tip of the iceberg of a huge wave of people, doing everything they could to get their 5 minutes of fame. And from that fame, either doing a rug pull with a cryptocurrency, or creating yet another generic podcast. If you've ever run your own business, you'll know how much of a pain it is to have all these different applications, all the costs that go into this, and all the research you have to do to find the right applications for your business. Which is why I want to tell you about Odoo. Odoo is the all-in-one management software that simplifies business operations for
All-in-one
entrepreneurs,
management
with
software,
applications
Ridge.
for invoicing, accounting, project
Oh, look,
management,
it
Sounds like an
inventory,
awful lot of
website
access to
creation, and
things you
more.
will never
Odoo
need or
streamlines
use.
every aspect
Well-
of day-to-day management, and your first application is free
Yeah.
for life, including hosting and support. And you can also upgrade to a paid plan when you
Yeah,
add a
see, one
second
app free.
application.
This
A
app I
great
really need.
feature
I'll
with
use that.
Odoo
That's
is their
free.
project
Maybe I use
application
this
that
one.
offers
Now I'll
flexible,
start subbing
comprehensive
25
project
minutes.
Well, this is
management
for
solutions designed to
creating
help
an app,
businesses
not-
stay organized, track progress, and collaborate with your team members.
This is a
With
like
Odoo
you
projects,
create your
you can
own map.
effortlessly manage tasks,
So create
deadlines,
your own
budgets,
app,
and resources all
I should
in
say.
one place, allowing you to stay
And then
organized with a
you
comprehensive
can
view of your
do like all this storyboarding and
projects. Odoo's detailed
project
dashboard
management.
allows you to customize stages and access multiple views tailored to your needs.
It's like
Advanced
Slack,
View
if you've
organizes
ever
tasks
seen
by
Slack.
stage, where you can drag
Yeah.
and drop tasks like sticky notes.
Yeah,
to
but I
keep
mean,
your
Slack was
pipeline
just the
well
communication
organized.
tool,
Then there's
right?
the Gantt view that provides
Yeah,
a
but
timeline
Slack
overview
also
of
has this
tasks,
kind of stuff in
dependencies,
it.
and scheduled dates. And the list view
Oh,
displays
okay.
essential data and enables
It's just
batch
you wouldn't use it
actions,
because you don't
making
make
it simple
software.
yet powerful.
This
You
is
can
the
navigate all
software
project-related
management
documents
and
seamlessly
creation
using
tool.
built-in actions in the control panel, allowing you to save and share custom views with your team for instant access to the data that matters most. If you're an entrepreneur, this is huge for your productivity, as you can streamline everything with advanced task features like subtasks, recurring tasks, and dependencies.
He spelled
whilst at
editing
same
wrong in
time,
the
you can also
video.
schedule activities, whether
Yeah.
to-dos, calls, or meetings, and set reminders all synchronized with your calendar. Odoo makes tracking progress effortless. With the timesheets application, employees can also record time spent on tasks in real time, and you can use all of this data to
My cat
track
is being
costs,
annoying
manage
again.
budgets, evaluate team performance, and even
Very
invoice
good.
clients for hours worked.
I mean, this looks like
meaning you
a
can stay
pretty
connected with your team
good
using
tool.
Odoo's real-time
Like, it
collaboration.
seems to have
tools.
a
And with their
lot
built-in
of
custom
functionality.
feature that lets you send
Right.
emails, add
The
notes,
question
and
is
attach
how
files directly
actually
to
useful
tasks,
is it?
you're able to centralize all
True.
information in one place to improve efficiency and communication.
Like, there is such
I
a
highly
thing as
recommend Odoo, so check them out with the link in the description below, or use the
whatever,
pinned
over
comment down below
scheduling,
to get
over
started today with
planning,
your
over
first app.
planning.
Oh yeah,
Right,
over
if you-
planning. Yeah.
Disney then saw
if
their
a whole
worst
person
failure in a
spends
year
all
of
their
disappointment.
time planning how everything is going to happen, they're not actually doing any work yet, right?
Yeah, true. Very true.
And at some point, me being told what I'm supposed to be doing gets in the way of me doing what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Which we know all too well in the school setting.
Yeah.
Like, let's have meetings about how we should have less meetings.
That sounds like a good meeting. We should schedule in 2 of those.
Yeah, we should have a second meeting about how we should be having less meetings, because that is super important that we start having less meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll see you at the next meeting.
Yeah. Perfect.
And that's when
Absolutely
the Acolyte
perfect.
released to awful reviews and terrible viewership. For many fans, it came as a final nail in the coffin for Disney's Star Wars, and the general treatment of their franchises. While the rest of the year would see some success for Disney, it wasn't really their own doing. Pixar and Deadpool's enduring popularity prevented a complete disaster later on in the year, of course. But their
Look at those meta scores, though. 73, 56. It's not exactly...
Yeah, that's not very good, is it?
I mean, that's pretty good by current standards in a way, but it's not.
yeah,
It's not really what I would call good.
No. I mean, I thought
Like, I've
Deadpool
got
and
to
Wolverine was
imagine
great.
the
so-
other Deadpool movies would have a higher meta score, right? as a general
maybe
rule.
not the second one. Probably the first one, but I don't think the second one did that well.
Really?
Yeah, from memory, the second one, like comparatively, if we're talking literally comparatively, I don't think the second one did that well.
Deadpool 2. I'm intrigued. Also 7.6 on IMDb. Exactly the same as it cut out to a Deadpool and Wolverine.
Perfect.
Interesting.
Perfect.
Interesting.
Illuminati.
84% on Rotten Tomatoes. It
What's the
seems
meta
high,
score though?
Yeah, I know. Trying to see if I can see that interface here. If I Deadpool. This, let's show list. But it
Oh
doesn't-
wow, it actually got 66. Actually did better.
Yeah, no, see, but the thing is, 66, what is this, 2018? A 66 in 2018 meant something
Significantly
very
less.
different to a 56 now in 2024.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I'm saying. That the way the
The
baselines have
variance,
shifted,
yeah.
or believe only the statistics you yourself have falsified, Riv.
Yeah.
But of grinding their properties into dust did seem to finally catch up to them in 2024, and was a final wake-up call for the studios. The US election was also heating up again with their first presidential debate.
Oh,
With nowhere to
there you
hide,
go.
Biden's health problems and faltering speech were now on full display to the public, and all Trump had to do was watch as his opposition crumbled right in front of him.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
Even with such a dismal performance, it still took nearly a month for
What does Trump say? I don't know what he said. I don't think he knows what he said.
Yeah.
It's just like
It was a very
hats off to him. He didn't sort of kick him when he was down, right? He's just like, okay.
well. He
I'm
did.
not
He
sure
didn't
how
need to, right?
respond to that.
He just was like he could sit there,
Like
he could
the-
stand
yeah.
there and he could watch the struggles that Biden was having, and he's like, I don't even need to like try and fight this. He's doing that himself.
Yeah. He's yep.
Biden to actually step down and let Kamala take over the ticket.
Okay, so when was that? Right after the debate? What are we in, like, April?
So he dropped out of the
May,
debate
June,
in
maybe?
July on July 21st. Sorry, dropped out
Right,
of
which
the
is
running.
well over 3 months before the actual election, right?
Yeah, when's the election? November 21st.
Is it November, right? Yeah, so it was 4 months before. So I would say the discussion we had before, I don't remember the specifics, but I feel somewhat validated. The Kamala was in the driver's seat the entire time it was in.
I
'Cause
mean,
as-
she's
as
been in the
soon as-
driver's seat for like way longer than that, though. Like,
Right, well, but that was my point. You were saying they were throwing their weight behind Biden when that wasn't
Oh
really the
no,
case.
because they were throwing their weight behind him until they were basically saying, yeah, no, you should keep running because we think you're going to win. And eventually, probably after watching the debate, they're like, well, he's
right
not
after
going
the
to win now.
debate, it would have been clear he ain't winning jack shit.
Yeah. But like everyone that was, I reckon everyone that was basically what I was saying is that everyone was standing behind Biden because they thought that Kamala would not win the election. So they didn't tell Biden not to run because they were like, oh, Kamala's probably not going to win.
Really?
But Biden has more of a chance of winning, even though he's like literally pretty much brain dead at this point.
Wait, what? That doesn't make sense, Riv. What?
The people behind Biden, like the people
Right.
that are in Parliament, that are behind Biden, that choose who runs for them, like who,
his party, you mean?
yeah,
The Democrats?
yeah, like
The-
was
the-
pushing for Biden to keep running because they didn't think Camilla could win against Trump
Well, then why did they install Camilla to run against him then?
because they
I
had
don't
no
understand.
one else. Who else is going to go up against Trump? Like Camilla was the second best option.
Doesn't that mean they think Biden is even less likely to win, which is why they let
No.
Kamala do it?
No, Biden stepped down because a doctor told him to. He would have kept running. I guarantee he would have kept running if a doctor didn't say, hey, you should probably like not continue this because it's not helping your mental health or whatever issues you're struggling with.
Yeah, but I've got to assume that they would just encourage him to ignore that, right? Or that they have some pull with the doctor himself.
No, because
Those seem
after
like
they see
competing
him,
ideas to me, Riv. Either they believe Biden can win and they encourage him to keep running and support him, or they don't.
they
and they
believed he
And I
can
feel like
win
they did.
until he was put into a public stage against someone who had full run or mostly full
Right. So
brain.
at that point, they don't
palatability.
believe he can win.
I know, but
And
I'm
at
not
that point,
talking.
it
I'm
doesn't-
talking about prior to that. The reason that he even went to run for a second term. I reckon that
Right.
everyone in the back of their minds in his party was like, well, you know, he's probably not going to win, but he's our best chance.
Yeah, but at that point, Kamala wasn't even in the mix. What do you mean? That wasn't a comparative belief to
If-
Kamala,
If
which is how I thought.
if
you framed
Biden
it.
had
You
dropped
said,
out,
they don't think she'll win, so they were still with Biden. But she wasn't even in the mix.
she would have been in the mix if Biden was not running. If Biden,
yeah,
if
well, as soon
Biden,
as Biden wasn't running,
No,
they
no.
realized the only option they had was Kamala. But prior
Exactly.
to that, she wasn't in the mix.
But
She was just some
if
face-saving VP.
if Biden had said, "I'm not running for a second term," they would have put Kamala in. That would have been their where they put all their eggs. They wouldn't have found someone else. They would have just put Kamala in. But they were obviously.
What do you mean they? Wait, what do you mean they would have? They did.
No, I'm talking about before any of this happened. If Biden had come out after his first term was like coming to an end and said, "I'm not going to be in the race," they would have put Kamala in straight away. That would have been their leading push, right?
Well,
they wouldn't have chosen someone else.
No, I don't know. What do you like? I don't know what you're basing that on. How do we know that that's what would happen? I'm not sure I'm with you on that. I don't think because they even thought about it. The incumbent president, it's very difficult to beat the incumbent president. Very difficult.
I'm saying on
the fact that fucking Trump lost as the incumbent and then Biden lost as the incumbent is like fairly infrequent an occurrence.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think
Biden didn't. It wouldn't have even been. Like, they wouldn't have contemplated anything other than Biden needs to run again. The incumbent president tends to win.
I think
it wasn't until he actively demonstrated, he ain't winning nothing, that they had to go to the next best choice, which was Kamala. And I don't think that was even a particularly good choice.
That's pretty much what I'm arguing. I'm saying that the only reason that Biden ran for a second term is because their party decided, if you don't send him in for a second term, we're not going to win the election. Because there's no one else that's got to beat Trump.
No, I think you're putting a causative. You're saying Kamala is so weak, therefore he runs. No, he runs independent of Kamala's weakness. And then when it turned out he was even weaker, potentially, they had to put in a different weak candidate. I don't think him running was based on the weakness of alternatives, because it's such a foregone conclusion that he should have run, that it's not. It makes it sound like there was a decision made, we should have him running. Whereas that's always the default choice, is my understanding. That the incumbent president
not if you spent 20 minutes alone with this, like, trying to speak to him. Like, he was so far gone, like, years before. He was pretty much, like, he was, like, half gone when he got elected. And, like, he doesn't get better, he just gets significantly worse. So anyone that's, like, watching him give speeches and stuff over the 4 years that he was in power is basically sitting in the back line going, I hope he can keep it together, otherwise we're literally effed.
I guess, but I mean, if that's how it was already running in that entire first term, then none of that's a surprise to anybody. And I don't think that changes the default position of, we should get the incumbent president to run again. But I don't know. I think it's not really important. I think
it's
we differ on where we're putting that causative link.
I just think that they pushed him to run for a second term because they knew Kamala wouldn't win. That's pretty much my entire point.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Pushed into it.
Knowing Kamala isn't going to win is not the main reason to get him to run again, especially if they know he's weak. It's because the incumbent president tends to win. It doesn't matter how weak Kamala is. Her weak, if she's so weak, there's other equally good weak candidates.
I don't think they had anyone else that could run that.
Hillary
wouldn't already.
I don't know. I think the reason I don't know is because that doesn't matter.
Did Bernie run this year?
Always in the first instance, they get the incumbent president to try to run again, despite how bad an idea that might seem to be. And once they throw that presidential election, okay, this is a bad idea. We can hide how decrepit he is getting during his term, but we can't do that during an election cycle. We are going to have to grab someone else. Oh God, our options are not great. What is the best?
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying, is that, like, he is the best of our options.
Like that decision-making process happened beforehand, which doesn't make sense.
That happened beforehand? What do you mean beforehand?
Beforehand, we need you to run again because these guys suck. Oh man, awful. Let's get one of these CR guys in.
Well, no, I reckon that if that debate didn't go as horribly as it did, like, we
would have kept Biden.
Yeah, we would have kept him. Yeah.
Of course. And that's what I'm saying. Biden needed to demonstrate they really couldn't let him run. And then he was off the table.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we need him running because we have options. No. The default choice is you run. There needs to be a good reason why you're not running. And we saw that good reason why he's not running. That to me,
But I feel like they saw that before the debate, and they were like, well, maybe he can hold it together for an hour and a half.
I think they can coach him through it. They just have to give it a whirl. And I think they've given it a whirl. Even if Kamala was a much stronger candidate, even if they had a much stronger candidate waiting in the wings, the first attempt would be to see if Biden does it. And that's why I don't think the reason they got him to do it is because Kamala was weak. They might not have thought that she was. Who knows? Because I genuinely think they would have done the exact same thing with a strong candidate waiting in the wings. If they somehow had Obama able to come back for a third term or some shit, they still would have let Biden have a crack. Because then him fumbling the election, the debate is the opportunity to say, look, he's cracked out, he's had enough. The doctors say we're going to let him out now. And we've got this awesome candidate who's fully endorsed by him, who's going to do all of the same good shit he was doing and none of that bad shit he was doing. Here we go. Here's our candidate. And that's why I don't think the discussion of the conclusion that Kamala's weak or strong or whatever happened prior to this, because this was going to happen no matter what.
Well, I mean,
and it was very clear that if this happened no matter what, which it was going to, then it was going to blow up in their face. The man just wasn't he mixing up like the Putin and whoever the Ukraine dude was, like repeatedly, like when that was a thing, like a year or two ago. Like
it would not surprise me. I sort of
names properly.
I moved away from politics because I just always had it in the back of my head that if Trump runs for runs again, he'll win. I don't know why. I just kind of knew that going in. It didn't matter who they put up. I feel like even if they put up Obama, Trump still won, just because. Based on the fact that I
feel like Obama might have been able to beat him.
I
actually think
Obama I don't know. Like it's kind of tight because Biden was very behind the scenes, right? Like very behind the scenes. There wasn't a lot of political stuff. I mean, there was, but it wasn't as in your face as when Trump is in power. And a lot of the generic voters who, in the US don't really, they think that he's not doing anything because he's not in your face. And so a lot of the people will vote based on, nothing happened in the past 4 years. Everything stayed the same. Therefore, we need change. And I think that's how they voted.
Well, I think the problem is things didn't stay the same, Riv. We've had like a couple of 100% inflation in that 4 years. We had the tail end of a pandemic that we're still recovering from.
Yeah,
an awful lot of shit happened in that 4 years.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I know a lot of things happened in that, but I don't think the American public sort of voted based on the fact that they knew about those things because they weren't so in your face. I mean, inflation's going to happen no matter what, right? I mean, it was high inflation for sure, but I don't think it didn't matter who was in power, that was going to happen anyway, especially like recovering from COVID. And we're still recovering from like the COVID scenario as well.
Well, I don't think we needed to see the levels of inflation that we have. You're right, inflation does always happen, but probably not to this extent. And probably Biden just giving free money out for an extended period of time didn't help with that.
But I mean that helped a lot of, like we were talking about earlier, that helped a lot of businesses stay in business. Like it was something that needed to happen.
But I think the reality is some of those businesses maybe shouldn't have stayed in business.
No, and that's true, but it's better that like some of them do. The good one, like some of the good ones do stay in business. Yeah, unfortunately, you're always going to have.
As you said, aren't those businesses now out of business?
Well, not all of them. I was talking very, very generally. But you're always going to have like the two faces of the coin in this argument, right? It's like, yeah, some businesses that really shouldn't stay in business are going to stay in business, and others that should stay in business don't. You're always going to have that sort of outcome.
Well, I agree, but I'm more prepared to believe that a business that should stay in business will eventually get back into business, whereas a business that shouldn't stay in business will continue to stay in business as long as it can, which is probably not of benefit to anybody.
I mean, yeah, but it will depend on the type of business that you're in, right? Like, if you're an online business, you're thriving through COVID, like Amazon, right? Just like kept going up and up and up.
Yeah, but no. Well, the going up and up and up is less to do. Well, I mean, yes, the numbers were better, but that was mostly because everybody had money to consume with because they were giving away free money, causing the inflation.
But no, Amazon's
valuations
so
to rise.
cheap, and it's delivery, and you don't need to leave your house, so it's like it's going to thrive in the COVID scenario.
Yeah. But I mean, we were moving in that direction anyway. Like, they were set up. It wasn't like,
But you got to get
Amazon suddenly surprised by all the demand.
No.
It's more like, Amazon can't keep up with all the demand, but we know something like that could happen.
But like the numbers that you're seeing Amazon get are directly in correlation with COVID. Look at Twitch. Like, Twitch boomed, right? During COVID, absolutely, like, boomed. And now it's like, suddenly people aren't at home 24/7, so now our numbers are severely dropping off. Like,
well, they're not.
They're dropping.
Severely
They are. They're dropping
That's the thing.
15% viewership a month. That is
okay.
a massive drop off. They are hemorrhaging money.
Right, but that's different to Amazon's core business of delivering shit to people, which the amount that's growing is decreasing, but it's not decreasing.
I mean, yeah, because like everyone else kind of shut down, right? Like, they can't compete with Amazon's prices because you don't need to pay wages of the same levels that you do to run a brick and mortar store. But I feel like I'm not saying Amazon would fail if COVID didn't happen. I just think that Amazon's numbers were heavily inflated because of COVID, and that's why it became the powerhouse.
The well-positioned businesses did well out of COVID, of course, but we meandered from the point. There's a lot of zombie companies that were kept in business around that time, and with all of the stock market speculation, and that's what caused a lot of the inflation.
Yeah,
just money sloshing around the system like crazy, and that doesn't change the point I wanted to make. I think it's better that a bunch of businesses that should not be in businesses finally go out of business, even if that means we take a couple of businesses with us that really should be in business, because ultimately, if those businesses really should be in business, they'll find a way to get back into business, or somebody else will have that idea. A good idea will eventually come to market, even if it gets snuffed out a little early.
I mean,
but what we shouldn't do is create an environment where all of these businesses that should not be in business are still in business. That's crazy.
Sure, but that's always going to happen. There's always businesses that shouldn't be in business.
I don't know about always happen. When it's a very hostile environment to creating a business, it's got to be a good business to make it. And we have a pretty hostile environment now. Maybe too hostile, potentially. I don't know. But there's a lot of unemployed people. I think there's a lot of people who'd be prepared to try to get into business once things settle down a little bit more.
I mean, maybe, but you have to have money to start a business, right?
You do, but that's why when things settle down a little bit more, maybe the bank's prepared to lend you money again. We're not there yet, but maybe we get back to that. We just can't have 0% interest rate. We can't have borrowing money be free, but borrowing money does have to cost something.
I mean, sure, yeah. Like, but that's just finance, right? Like, that's just how it's got to work.
The thing is, we had 0% interest during all of this time. That's what's so crazy. That's how this shit started happening.
Did we have 0% interest? When did we have 0% interest?
Back in COVID. If we weren't already at 0, they certainly would have dropped it to 0 when COVID came roaring. Here's free money. Also, money is free. I don't know, maybe it was 0.25 interest. I don't know. Some near 0 amount, though. It was practically 0. I'm sure of that. Because it wasn't until, I don't know, a couple of years ago that they first started like raising interest rates beyond 0.
Right. Okay.
What do we have? Yeah. Federal funds rate? Let me check what the federal funds rate says. Federal funds rate. COVID? Yeah. Three cuts. Where was it? Where's my little shortcut? These cuts lowered the funds rate to a range of 0 to 0.25%. Exactly what I said. It's basically 0 or 0.25%. When COVID hit, they went down to essentially nothing. Between late 2020 and mid 2023, and
then what's it back up to now?
Now it's like 3 or 4%, I think.
Yeah.
Like an actual meaningful number. Yeah. March 2022 to June 2023, 10 rate hikes varying in size from 25 to 75 basis points. The target range moved from 0 to 0.25% to 5 to 5.25%. So target rate's gone up 5%. From basically nothing to 5%. So we had a long time of, yeah.
I guess it depends on what you would consider a business that shouldn't exist to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess
Because that would be opinionated, right?
Sure.
Because a lot of
But
people
I do,
would.
you know, like, I don't, like Ludwig's esport business or whatever that put on the streamer event awards thing, you know? Those are the kinds of businesses that don't survive in the environment we have now. And that's like not even that good of an example, because that's actually a business that probably maybe ought to survive, because I'm sure he's actually being sensible with the money he's spending on that. But
Yeah, and this is where it gets really hard.
You can't just create your own PR business and buy some streamer advertising and get work, like that sort of crap that for a while there worked, because you could like speculatively borrow 0% money.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when money's 0%, if you agree to pay 2%, yeah, sure, we'll lend you a couple of $100,000, right? Against some hypothetical value that you can manufacture, some crypto you own, or some nonsense asset that isn't really technically worth anything either, but borrow against it. It's worth enough that you can borrow against it, and then you have some real money. Sure, you owe it, but like, ow, what does that even mean? That's how all the banks went bust, right? Wait, does 2024 include like the bank crisis? Is that in there as well, or was that last year already?
I don't think that was 2024.
Wasn't that like the Silvergate Bank or whatever, the regional banking? I guess we'll find out. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. We've gotten awfully sidetracked here.
Yeah.
By then, though, it was already far too late to make a difference on the final result. While people's eyes were certainly on America's election cycle throughout the year, July saw both France and the UK reach the end of theirs. First, in the tail end of June, France went to the polls for the first time, with a second election held shortly after to finalise the results. It wasn't an election that legally had to happen. Macron could have technically waited years for the next one, but politically he had to act, and the people of France grew their hatred towards the establishment. Earlier on in the year, right-wing candidates pretty much swept the EU's parliamentary.
Yeah, wasn't that like really wasn't that like super crazy for France when they had that election? I remember
I'm
being
not sure. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah,
isn't Macron still in power? Didn't the same dude win?
Quite possibly, but I just remember there were like riots and shit.
Yeah, but like France regularly has riots and
That's
shit.
True. That is true. Yeah, so it's hard to know.
Yeah, you're right. They had some riots, but I don't know what significance they had. Like, what did those riots indicate? There seemed to be a lot of people, a lot of woke-looking people that were very happy, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought at the moment there's a slide to the right. Sort of.
Possibly. It seems like most people are swinging right at the moment.
I guess so, except for these very radically left people who seem very happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he'll tell us.
Elections. Macron's long-term presidential rival Marine Le Pen gained a massive amount of power, and Macron had to shore up his position in response. In the end, though, the results weren't really to anyone's liking. Yet again, France had a hung parliament, and Macron's centrist party lost even more power while both the left and the right gained support. An election that just showed how much division and hatred there is in France.
Right. So, yeah, there's nobody in the middle anymore, Riv. Just everything is skewing heavier to the extremes, which means nobody can meet themselves in the middle. So
Yeah.
polar politics is not particularly useful politics.
No.
Democracy doesn't work when you have a bigger half and a smaller half and they can't agree on getting anything done, which is pretty difficult when you have two halves.
Yeah.
Generally, you need some kind of majority.
Yeah.
But nobody's in the middle to like swing things anymore, right?
Yeah.
Or not many people.
Yeah. You've sort of, you got one or the other.
You just don't have any moderates, don't have any temperates in the middle saying, hey, we'll help you get shit done, but then we're going to skew away from the really extreme shit and maybe just do some of the like more moderate stuff in the middle, please. That
Although
might be good.
I do feel like a lot of the left-leaning people, especially like the government bodies, are more centrist than left-leaning at this point, just in terms of policies and things like that. So maybe that's what's causing a lot of this like divide in quotations.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what centrist even looks like, Riv.
It's essentially like if you look at Australia's parliament, like the left side in Australia is trying to abolish Medicare, right? Like that is centrist. That's not left leaning. Left leaning is pro Medicare, but they're trying to get rid of it. Like both parties are trying to get rid of Medicare. So what does that tell you? One party is way more centrist, and the other party is full right leaning.
Okay, maybe.
So that kind of thing. It's just like they're doing stuff like that. There's more of their policies are more centrist than left leaning.
Why are they selling those policies as being centrist?
No, they're selling them as left leaning, which is really
Exactly.
interesting.
So that's the point. It doesn't matter what anybody's doing. They're all doing it under the banner of we are this extreme and the others are the other extreme and they're bad and we're good.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
Nobody can actually openly say, hey, I have moderate or centrist views. Can we just do like a healthy mixture of things, please?
Well, you can't run a party like that really well and like expect to succeed, I guess.
And that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to push a centrist view into a position of power.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but I just think it's like really, really, really difficult to get that kind of like, because you're not appealing to anyone, right? You're not appealing to any group. You're kind of trying to appeal to everyone.
I assume you're appealing to the silent majority. Like, how many people are actually out here demonstrating and being extremely left or right wing? Not that many people.
Yeah,
but they're the only ones we keep hearing about, and I think that's the issue.
I mean, I vote for the Pirate Party because they are trying to get us better internet. So
Yeah, but I don't know how realistic is it that anything happens with that.
0%. All of their votes go to I think left. I think they're
exactly.
Their votes
So there you go. So even though you don't want to,
I'm
a
voting
preferential voting system in Australia means you don't really have a choice but throw your votes in a direction.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
I mean, yeah, Pirate Party is left leaning for sure. Either way. But I just vote for where the internet is because I vote for what's important.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Between both parties, and an election that was meant to solve France's political stability ended up making things even more polarised. It wasn't an arrangement that would last for long. At pretty much the same time, the UK was also staring down the barrel of another election. After well over a decade in power, the Conservative Party had run through every possible leader it could offer, and they ended up with nobody's favourite or anyone's elected choice, Rishi Sunak. Keir Starmer as leader of the opposition barely had to do anything. Everyone expected a landslide purely based on how tired people were of their current government, and when the results finally came through in early July, it was even worse than most people had thought for the Conservatives. Labour won a huge amount of seats in Parliament, giving them an overwhelming majority. But under the surface, they didn't actually win that many votes. People just wanted change because of the UK's fast past the post system, meaning Labour won nearly 2/3 of Parliament with only just 1/3 of the total votes. Meanwhile, Reform UK had massively damaged the Conservatives by taking nearly 15% of the total votes and getting themselves a few seats in Parliament. While the footprint in Westminster is small right now, they could easily grow to replace the Conservatives as the UK's main right-wing political party, with even the backing of Elon Musk, making it clear that no matter the country, everybody wants change. With terrible economies, growing crime, and growing instability throughout the West, it's clear why so many drastic changes have happened this year. July also saw an event that should have had a much more lasting impact in the news, news, but almost faded away with everything else that happened
Yeah,
in the
that's
year.
insane.
At one of his election rallies, an armed gunman climbed up onto a nearby roof and attempted to assassinate Trump. We all saw
That's
the footage,
so
the
nuts.
bullet missed
Yeah,
by
right?
just millimeters. One gust of
I don't understand how that wasn't a more significant thing. Like,
I'm pretty
so
sure it
insane.
happened twice as well.
What? The second time they stopped it a little more efficiently.
Yeah.
But I just mean, how do you?
How did it get pushed under the rug? Because we live in a 15-minute world.
Like, well, just the level of incompetence necessary to let that sort of thing happen is what blows me away. Like, there are people whose job it is to stop that sort of thing happening. They clearly didn't do their job.
Yeah, I think that it's. I don't even know if it's incompetence or just lack of belief that it would happen. It's like, which is weird because you live in America where like anyone can own a gun.
Yeah. Well, what do you like? The thing is, when your whole job is to stop it happening, it just seems weird that you wouldn't contemplate the possibility that it might happen, right?
Yeah, it's probably just. I mean, it was someone like in a high-rise apartment or something, right? I can't remember.
No, he just got it. There was like mobile footage of people like recording him hanging around hours earlier and scoping out where he was going to do it, and then being like, "Oh, that dude looks pretty suspicious. Like, we should say something to somebody." Like, I don't know. This whole thing, I don't think was as much of a surprise. Yeah, there was a lot of information that came to light that indicated people really ought to have taken things a little more seriously than they perhaps did.
I think it's just the mindset that a lot of people have of, oh, someone else will look into it, someone else will deal with it.
No, but I mean that's why they have a whole whatever branch of the government, the Secret Service. Their whole job is to take things like that seriously.
Yeah.
And then did you see the C-SPAN like whatever Senate hearing things with the woman in charge of the Secret Service and how useless she was? That was horrendous, dude. Horrendous.
No, I didn't actually see. Like I said, I sort of avoided most politics this year.
It's not a politics thing. This is like a person who was in charge of a government department that did a god awful job. Your whole job is to stop the president getting assassinated, and dude hangs around, nobody says anything, climbs up on a rooftop, nobody says anything, pulls out a gun and just takes pot shots at the president, kills a bunch of people. It's crazy, dude. Crazy. And even like the Secret Service agents that were like supposed to protect him, like not following procedure, right? Like he was, I don't know how much of that is conspiracy theory stuff. But if somebody's actually managing to get a shot off at the president, I feel like there's some level of incompetence that somebody can be accused of here.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure a lot of people probably got fired or whatever for
basically not good enough in my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, just human error, right? Like no matter what, there's always going to be human error.
I get that, but I feel like this is like so many things. Like it's not this is too much human error.
And I mean, it's all hindsight as well, right? Like someone walking around looking dodgy because he's wearing a cap and sort of like scouting the area is. I mean, a lot of people do that,
obviously,
right?
You're right. Hindsight is 20/20, and I do agree with you there. But again, 20/20 hindsight doesn't invalidate that. Clearly, like why was that rooftop not in the cordon, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a really obvious spot to take a shot at him.
Yeah.
From.
No, and I'm not saying that you're wrong or whatever.
Just like I don't know about things, but if there's a really obvious rooftop that you can get a clear shot at the president from, I feel like maybe somebody ought to be up there, or just checking it regularly, or checking if anybody is near it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
If your argument is, I've only got 2 agents at my disposal, so I can only focus on the 2 biggest threats. All right, fair enough, but I feel like these group of people have resources, a near endless number of resources if they can justify it. So.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's no one's fault. I definitely agree with you on all those points, but it is just there's a lot that goes into these, and things get missed, and they always get missed.
I agree,
and that's something that they missed.
Yeah, but then the question should be asked: how did that get missed? And I think that woman had to resign. So it seems like weak ass leadership at the top. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe she planned it.
Wind or one minor shake of the gunman's hand decided the fate of the world in that moment, and who knows what could have happened if he hadn't missed. It's fairly certain that America's political tension would have boiled over into all-out chaos, and it was a complete disgrace that this happened from a security perspective. But luckily he survived, and then as July turned into August, the Olympics started up in Paris and dominated the world's newsfeed for weeks. The recent elections were still fresh in people's minds, and politics immediately found its way into the event. First, there was the shockingly terrible opening ceremony, and its parody of the Last Supper, which
Oh, really?
the entire world.
What is that? So I didn't watch any of the Olympics this year, like none of it. I didn't even know what was going on until the second week. But looking
I guess I knew what was going on, but
I didn't even know what was going on. Like I feel like I suppose they're advertising to people who watch TV, right? Because that's where the Olympics is broadcast, and I don't watch TV. So I found out, like, I think it was you that told me about the breakdancer. The Australian breakdancer.
Yeah.
Like, that's how out of the loop I was. Like, an Australian breakdancer literally made, like, news headlines, and I did not know anything about it. So I don't know if that's just because the Olympics was not advertised to me in the places where I look, or if it's just literally that because I don't have a TV, I don't know what's going on in Australia. Or in that type of that part of the world.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I don't know. I would have thought other things should still be able to reach you. I would have thought.
Yeah.
But perhaps.
Yeah. But looking at this, I can see why. Well, I'd probably seen this image before and didn't even know what it was associated with. Because, like, this has got to be plastered all over the internet, right? Like, this guy dressed up as a Smurf. Like, what is going on here?
Or something. Yeah, what is this?
Then there was China's intervention in the silencing of Taiwan, banning all mention of their country flag and national identity from the Olympics. Russia's exclusion from the event entirely also detracted from the overall competitiveness, in spite of the good reasons for their ban. But even with those things in mind, the quality of the competition and the dedication of the athletes easily shined through. It gave people a welcome break from the political chaos of the past few months, even with all the bogus political virtue signaling that was forced into the event. However, far more people remember Turkey's shooting silver medalist and his lack of equipment than remember the political controversies. In fact, the most negative thing that people remember was Australia's amateur breakdancer, which they entered into the newly created Olympic event. Nobody should condone the harassment she received, but it's also not wrong to face up to reality and call a spade a spade. September would then prove to be an incredibly big month for the music industry, although not in a way that most people expected. Earlier in the year, Kendrick Lamar and Drake's public feud had brought some deeply disturbing allegations to light. This month would prove, though, that Drake's alleged crimes were far from an isolated incident. P. Diddy had suddenly come into the news for a story of his depraved parties, the freak-off parties, completely pulling the veil back on how disturbing Hollywood and the music industry really is, especially at the upper echelons of the industry. In March, police had raided the rapper's LA mansion and found a treasure trove of drugs, weapons, and reportedly over 1,000 bottles of baby oil. And suddenly,
okay, there was not baby oil in those. No matter what anyone says, that was liquid acid or liquid ecstasy or something similar. There is absolutely no way that he had legitimate baby oil. Like, I mean, why? That had to be drugs.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe he liked to do weird stuff with baby oil, Riv.
I mean, maybe, but
that's a lot of bottles of drugs. If they're finding drugs as well, there's also another 1,000 bottles we can't explain that's probably not drugs. I don't know. I feel like they would have checked if they were drugs.
I mean, I feel like they would have as well, but maybe they because it was when they found them, they said it was like we found 1,000 bottles of baby oil. They didn't say what was in it. They said they found a 1,000 bottles, like 1,000 baby oil bottles. They might have been empty.
Yeah, I guess. Well, yeah, maybe he hadn't taken his glass trash out for a while.
But no, I'm 99% sure that's drugs, and it's just an easy way to transport drugs, right? Especially like, I mean, what do you have at these crazy parties? A lot of drugs.
No doubt, yeah.
All the people connected with P. Diddy, which was a huge chunk of the American elite, were now shaking in their boots. And the controversy really started when an ex-partner of the musician accused him of using his position in the industry to exploit and abuse her. She described a world of predatory parties, where women would be coerced, drugged, and forced into performing depraved acts. The case was settled out of court the very next day, but it would turn out to be only the tip of a very large iceberg. Over the next few days, more and more allegations added up, eventually leading to the rapper's arrest on the 16th, which we made an entire video on earlier in the year. We could easily see lots more crimes exposed in the industry over the next year, as it seems the top of the celebrity industry has some very disturbing secrets they're desperately trying to hide. A similar veil was also being lifted in the influencer world, as Mr. Beast, who enjoyed years of interrupted dominance in the YouTube world, suddenly found himself in hot water, as earlier in the year allegations were made accusing him of workplace abuses and shady behind-the-scenes practices, especially concerning the issue with one of his friends. While the whole situation is a mess and we don't really know what the truth is here, it would prove to be a turning point in Mr. Beast's reputation online, a reputation that seemed almost indestructible. Whether or not this is legitimate though, that's up to you. But it was clear that people were losing patience in his brand with the release of Lunchly. The Lunchables inspired product was seen by most as a blatant low quality cash grab designed to dupe his younger audience. When people bought them, lots of people found they had already gone moldy and the supposed health benefits they advertised didn't really stand up to closer inspection. Angry responses to criticism from Mr. Beast's business partners Logan Paul and KSI really didn't help the matter either. Although in the grand scheme of things, there wasn't really much here compared to everything else. But the next month would bring another influencer crashing down to reality. This time it was Johnny Somali, whose abuser-filled tour of the world finally came to an end. His general strategy.
This guy is just the worst person.
I can't believe he gets his own separate mention. Didn't that problem kind of polarize itself?
I feel like he's not big enough to get his own mention, but I guess what he did was pretty significant and deserves its own mention, but to give him a platform, I feel, is slightly worse, right? Because a lot of people were just not talking about this because they didn't want to give him a platform. Because the more that he gets a platform, the more he thinks what he's doing is okay.
Exactly.
At least that's what I'm guessing why it wasn't covered a lot. Because I tried to watch a few videos on this, but I could only find like 1 or 2 people that were actually covering what he was doing.
I saw something by Mudaham, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's one of the people that I watched.
But like that was a pretty good take. I mean, when he bothers to weigh in on that kind of drama, he takes a pretty objective look, in my experience, in terms of like actually giving like the Johnny Somali history. And
it's really weird because I used to watch Johnny Somali on Kick when he first started. And I was watching him and I'm like, this guy is going to get in some serious trouble very soon because he was doing stuff in Japan. And I'm like, Japan does not like this kind of behavior. So,
I don't think anybody likes that kind of behavior, Riv.
But like Japan more so. They are very, very upstanding.
I would have thought the other way around, that like Japan ends up being pretty polite about it. Because what happened to Logan Paul when he did the in the like forest thing? Did they do anything there?
They deported him, I think.
Okay.
But that like in terms of when I say they don't like this kind of thing, it's like they tolerate it so much, but they tolerate it to a certain point, and then for someone who's living there, like, because they knew that Jake Paul wasn't living there, right? They knew that Jake Paul was going to leave. Johnny Somali's been living in Japan, or was living in Japan, for a significantly long time, doing this for.
I thought he just went over there to be.
No, he went to all these countries, like all the Asian countries, because he knows they have high tolerance.
Right.
But like,
like whatever video I saw, they were showing him like yelling Hiroshima and Nagasaki at people like on the train, things like that. But I didn't realize he was living there. I thought that was just like
no, he was living there. And then when he got kicked out of Japan, and I'm amazed they didn't throw him in jail, he just went to another Asian country and did the same thing there. And I can't remember, Korea maybe.
He was just because it was Koreans that were after him. This I think Korea's the one who actually finally maybe did something.
I'm amazed that Japan didn't throw him in jail immediately.
That's what I mean. Like, I actually think, contrary to what you said, that if anything, Japan's a little too nice about it.
Well, Johnny Somali got filming in public places basically banned in Japan.
Yeah, which is a bit of a shame. That's unfortunate for every other streamer who maybe doesn't want to do things inappropriately. But,
every other streamer on the platform, right? Or the majority of.
Well, I mean, there's probably a couple more that are not in it for the right reasons, but it's generally short list. I would have thought.
He had to give like a public apology in Japan, from memory, or a couple of them or something.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
For his streaming career was to go to a foreign country, intentionally abuse and antagonize its people, and then record the often violent results. Typically, his disrespect only earned him travel bans and slaps on the wrist, but that all changed when he was arrested in South Korea on October 26th for desecrating a monument. South Korean officials would later lock in a travel ban, preventing him from leaving the country before his trial in 2025. And if convicted, he might actually face up to 5 years in prison, perhaps even more if he's found guilty of other crimes as well. However, November's biggest event was by far the US election. In the days before it happened, polls and mainstream news organizations insisted that it was a 50-50 toss-up with no clear favorites, even though all the gambling market said otherwise. And almost everybody knew this wasn't true. And the results obviously spoke for themselves. Trump swept every single swing state, taking the election by storm, being yet another huge monumental changing point in the Western political sphere, showing that people were sick to death of the current establishment. In the aftermath, nearly all the legal cases brought against him were thrown out or postponed indefinitely. Even strictly anti-Trump people like Mark Zuckerberg were now almost talking about him positively. Establishment figures from leading journalists to industry magnates nearly all fell in line to secure their place in the new administration. And the consequences of this are too large to know, but only the next 4 years will give us the answer. Hopefully for America though, this will go some way towards mellowing out the political division that's plagued the country for years. But for the rest of the world, there will be a lot of consequences as well. The Ukraine war, which has been raging since 2022, will most likely see an end soon, as Trump's indicated that he's dead set on bringing this to a close at the negotiating table. It's also big
nice,
for
right? I feel like that was, for me, as an American, hypothetical American, would have been a big draw card hearing a politician say, I'm going to end the war in Ukraine. Because I don't think Kamala was even trying to say that, right?
Really?
Like, they were all for, if anything, they were like upping the war rhetoric, right? They're like, we need to invest more American lives and resources into winning this war, as opposed to not continuing with it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. That also sounds very stupid, and I now understand why a lot of people did not vote in her favor. Because I feel like at any point in time when there's a war, the immediate public statement should be, we want to end this war as quickly as possible. Let's put more money and resources into it.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate because I think there's plenty of American interest that like having a proxy war against Russia where they can test their drones and their missiles and their whatever the hell, but there's an awful lot of foreign aid that goes to Ukraine from America.
Yeah.
Just by ending the war, that's an awful lot of money back in their pockets, right?
Everyone loves money.
Yep, I know, I'm a fan.
Europe, as December saw France's imbalanced government finally implode and Macron's pick for PM get ousted. And it's really unclear whether Macron will be able to hang on to whatever power he has left, or if Marine Le Pen will swoop in to take advantage of the chaos. Germany's government is all but guaranteed to collapse sooner rather than later, with its snap elections expected early next year. And at the same time, Justin Trudeau has had massive amounts of pressure to step down, with almost all of Canada now hating their Prime Minister, leaving both Europe and Canada without any strong leaders as Trump comes into power, giving him a very strong position to negotiate from within the political bloc. 2024 was the year that showed us how much the world is really changing. From the political and geopolitical establishment to people's anger and frustrations. Trust in the entire financial system, our leaders, our culture is at an all-time low. Bitcoin skyrocketing above $100,000 showed this, as people are rejecting the nonsense they have to live through, which made 2024 such a pivotal year for all of us. And one massive piece of news that happened towards the end of this year really bears discussion, of course. But as we've already seen, people just mentioning this on YouTube often find themselves demonetized and censored. However, seeing the response to all of this, and the huge praise online for Luigi, really highlighted the true extent of the changing times we're living through.
Alright, that was a good video. It's a good wrap up.
It was, yeah.
A lot of things that I didn't even remember. Luigi was the guy that shot the CEO.
Right, yeah.
Which is weird that he didn't really talk anything about that at all during that video, because that was a pretty pivotal moment. But well,
I mean, you only have so much space, which is why I'm surprised certain things got a mention that did get a mention.
Yeah.
And I mean, Moon videos are interesting and cool, but yeah, I feel like he's got a really strong agenda behind the choice of content, like, which isn't a bad thing. I think important to know why you're doing things and have good reasons behind it and whatnot.
For sure.
So I don't, in that sense, have an issue with it, but I still think it's a little odd. Watch.
Yeah,
What
no,
exactly?
I definitely agree. Especially, I mean, I don't watch a lot of Moon. Moon's someone that I actually only recently started watching. So, but you can definitely see his biases on the content that he includes in his videos.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, everyone's going to have a bias. It's fine. And I think that he does make really good videos, but sometimes, yeah, you sort of question, like, why did he include that and not include this, like Johnny Somali, and then not include the CEO thing?
Yep. Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, that was a good video. Please check out Moon. He makes great videos. And from everyone at RTcast, we wish you a very good New Year's and the best for 2025.
Yeah. Have a good one.